Landed her first real corporate job at 26 years old, salary $70,000 a year. And her dad looked at that number and told her she was already starting too late. Here's the part that might surprise you. He's not entirely wrong. Hey Profiteer, Eric here. Welcome back to Real Money Stories. Today's episode comes from the Personal Finance subreddit, and it's about the retirement question that trips up almost every first-time corporate employee. This one comes from the Personal Finance subreddit. The original poster is 26, stepping into her first corporate job, and she's genuinely wrestling with advice from the people closest to her. Let me read it to you in their own words. 26F am starting my first corporate job. I've worked random jobs up until now and have never contributed to my 401k. My last highest paying job, I was $52k. My new job, most people are telling me I should max out my 401k. Most people may be overestimating how much I'm making. However, my dad is also telling me to max out, even though he knows how much I will be making. On one hand, I want to trust him because he works in finance and is well off himself, but on the other hand, it seems kind of crazy. He's telling me that I'm already starting this process way too late. Company does 100% match on the first 3% of contribution and 50% match on the next 2% contribution. Anyone have any thoughts or advice? Thanks in advance. Okay, first thing I want to say reading this is she's doing something right just by asking the question. Stepping into a corporate job for the first time, fielding retirement advice from multiple directions, trying to make a smart call with real money on the line. That's genuinely hard. The uncertainty behind that post is completely understandable. I've been writing about personal finance for over a decade, and the pattern I keep seeing on questions like this one is that the advice people receive is technically correct, but the sequencing is wrong. Max your 401k is good advice in the abstract. Hand it to someone on their first corporate paycheck with no emergency fund and a brand new budget to figure out, it can actually create problems. So let me walk through what I'd probably do in her shoes. First framework worth understanding here is what I'd call the free money floor. Her company matches 100% of the first 3% of salary she contributes and 50% on the next 2%. Let's put actual numbers on that. At $70,000 a year, 3% is $2,100. Her company matches every dollar of it. She puts in another 2%, which is $1,400, and the company adds $700 more. So if she contributes exactly 5% of her salary, about $3,500 of her own money, she gets $2,800 from her employer on top, $6,300 total in her account before a single dollar has had the chance to grow. That's an 80% instant return on the matched portion. No investment product on earth gives you that. The free money floor says you contribute at least enough to capture the full employer match. That's not a goal. That's a floor. Non-negotiable, automated before she ever sees the money in her checking account. Second framework is the 3 to 6 month emergency fund rule. For pushing her contribution above that 5% baseline, she needs a financial cushion. 3 months of essential expenses at minimum, 6 if the job feels uncertain or income could vary. At $70,000 a year, that's probably somewhere between $8,000 and $15,000 sitting in a high-yield savings account. Why does this come before pushing harder on the 401k? Because a 401k is locked. If she hits a medical emergency or loses the job and pulls money out of a traditional 401k before age 50, 9.5%, she owes ordinary income tax on every dollar plus a 10% early withdrawal penalty. The emergency fund is what keeps the retirement account untouched. You can't save a crisis that forces you to raid your own retirement. Now, here's where it gets complicated. Dad is saying she's starting too late. I want to address that directly because it actually matters. She's 26. 26 is not late. IRS says she can contribute to retirement accounts until her 70s. She has roughly 47 years of compounding ahead. Put a dollar in at 26, and at a 7% average annual return, that dollar becomes about $24 by retirement. Put it in at 36 and it becomes about 12. Every year does matter. Dad is right about that part. Too late is the wrong framing entirely, and I'd push back on it because the right framing is this: every year you wait costs you something real, so start now and start right. But the obvious move, just max it out, is not actually the right first step. Here's why. 401k contribution limit in 2026 is $23,500. At a $70,000 salary, that's 33% of gross income going into retirement before she's built any financial cushion, paid off any existing debt, or figured out what her actual monthly budget looks like on this new paycheck. For some people, that math works. For most people at her salary and starting point, it's too aggressive too fast. And the last thing she wants is to over-contribute, feel financially squeezed, and quietly stop contributing altogether. The research on this is pretty clear: sustainability beats sprinting. So here's the sequence I'd probably follow in her position. 3 steps. Step 1, contribute exactly 5% to capture the full employer match. Done automatically using the pay yourself first principle. Framework has a name for a reason. Treats saving as a bill you pay before anything else, not the thing you do with whatever happens to be left over at the end of the month. Step 2, build the emergency fund. While she's getting settled in the new role, direct extra cash toward 3 to 6 months of expenses in a high-yield savings account. Fidelity Cash Management Ally, Marcus by Goldman Sachs, plenty of solid options paying real interest right now. Step 3, once the cushion is in place, decide between increasing the 401k contribution or opening a Roth IRA. At $26,000 and $70,000 of income, she's likely in the 22% federal tax bracket. A Roth IRA means she contributes after tax dollars now, and everything grows and comes out tax-free in retirement. This age and this income level, that's usually the stronger move over a traditional pre-tax 401k. 2026 Roth IRA contribution limit is $7,000 a year, which works out to about $580 a month. After the Roth IRA is maxed, go back and increase the 401k contribution. If the budget eventually allows it, work toward maxing that out as income grows. Do it in order. Match first, cushion second, Roth IRA third, back to the 401k. And just a friendly reminder, this episode is for entertainment and education purposes only and should not be considered financial or legal advice. Talk to a qualified financial advisor about your specific situation. A fee-only fiduciary is the only kind worth hiring. XY Planning Network is a good place to start. One last thing worth naming. Her dad is well off and works in finance. Genuinely useful context, and she's smart to take it seriously. But there's a real gap between understanding finance at the macro level and knowing what it actually feels like to build a first budget on $70,000 a year. Both things can be true at the same time. Dad is right that compounding is real and time matters. She's also right that jumping straight to $23,500 a year without a plan could create real strain. The answer lives in between: capture the match, build the cushion, then scale up deliberately. Always starts with the first dollar. Specific question here was about a first corporate paycheck, a $70,000 salary, and a dad saying max it out. The principle underneath all of it applies at any income level. Free money first, cushion second, then aspiration. The employer matches the best guaranteed return you will ever find. Never leave it on the table. Everything else is sequencing. If you found this helpful, share it with someone dealing with the same thing. Until next time, stay profitable.